Welcome to the Breathwork Summit, a free online event where you'll learn from top experts about integrating the power of your breath to transform your health and well-being. Share this powerful program with your friends and family, and come join us on Facebook at The Shift Network. And now your host, Jessica Dibb.
Welcome to the Global Breathwork Summit 2020. This session is called Journeying Towards a Unified Field of Breathwork, and I am delighted to welcome my friend and colleague, Lauren Shellett-Kafritz. Lauren is an internationally known breathworker and the author of Breath Love. She's the national coordinator of the International Breathwork Foundation here in the United States, and she's also a member of the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance. And I'm so glad you're here to have this really important conversation today, Lauren.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So let's start out by having people get to also know you a little bit so they'll understand some of what's brought you to the beauty and the importance of this particular conversation. So can you share with everybody how you came to breathwork and maybe what was one of the most powerful experiences you've ever had with breathwork, and then also why you felt called to become a breathworker?
Great question. So I was dragged to the path. My neck, I had pain that was like sciatica in my neck. It was immense, and Western medicine was asking me to have surgery, and we had a 9-month-old, and I thought, there's not a chance that I want to do that. And I tried all sorts of different modalities, and in yoga class, I started having these whooshing sensations that were really powerful, and I went back to my internist, and she said, oh, you're having panic attacks, and gave me Valium. But the Valium could not keep down that whooshing. And a very good friend of mine and a student of yours, Ken Lewis, took me for my very first breathwork session with Alice. And during the session, it became really clear to me that that energy was me, and that I had been suppressing me. And I started to understand that there was a physical part of my pain and there was a psychological part of my pain. And at the end of the session, I just sat up and I'm like, why isn't everyone doing this? This is amazing. This is so powerful. And I came to you for the 8-week course. And in the 8-week course, it was just, I gobbled that up. And then I came for the, 1 year and the essence. And I got the calling. I was sitting in a room one day with another student, and you walked in, and he was laying down, and I don't know, I guess I was guiding him. And I think it came to you right then and there, and I think it came to you too, that this is where I'm heading. And I grew up in the suburbs, seriously eating Captain Crunch. And, my master's in journalism, as a photojournalist. And I just turned to my husband, and I said, I'm going to be a breathworker. And I never looked back. I went through your training. I went through Judith Kravitz, and I studied transformational breath work. And then I got involved with the IBF, which, the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance I got involved with, and Jim Morningstar. And, and then I hosted this past year the Global Inspiration Conference. It happens every year in a different country. And I brought it back to the United States for the first time in 19 years. So every time I get around the breath, something miraculous happens. And, incredible spiritual awakenings happen. Emotional mastery happens. I don't know if I could just point out one breath session, because there's just so many miraculous things that have happened over the years. But in my own practice, what I notice is anytime I mix breath, sound, and movement together, it's just the earth shakes. So that's my life, that's my journey. And anything I can do to help expand it out into the world And Breath Love was the beginning. The Global Inspiration Conference was so important to be able to spread it far and wide. And at the same time I was birthing that, I was birthing Breath Love, which took breath work and simplified it down to its roots. So anybody who's going through something could just pick it up and get little gems and really understand, in a very fast way, what the breath brings. If you're in trauma, if you're in transition, if you're looking for transformation. And so I'm very much the Tao of Pooh, simple, simple, simple. So with the Global Inspiration Conference, for me, it was an incredibly powerful thing to bring all the global breath schools together in a round table, which I wanted you to be a part of, and to begin the Together We Rise movement, which has been building all along, but it was a way to bring everyone together in a gentle way so that we can talk about our humble beginnings, like my pain in the neck, or, how each person has a story. And as each breath school listened to the stories, you could see the cohesion begin. And so from that place, we got to ask the more challenging questions, like how do we take it to the next level? How do we expand it?
So that's really the inspiration, the impetus behind this particular conversation and session on the summit, which is how do we take it to the next level? And what is it that we're really dreaming into and visioning and building towards? And so, back in 2013, we had the conference at Omega Center for Holistic Studies that was called Breath Immersion, From Science to Samadhi, which I, as you know, was the convener and visionary and, host and teacher at, and you were there.
Yes.
And I named the unified field into the space. And that was an amazing conference because we had, people there. We had Stan Groff there from holotropic breathwork, and we had Jack Kornfield there from, representing that whole sort of Buddhist mindfulness piece, and Dan Siegel and Richard Brown and Pat Gerbard with coherent breathing. And we had people representing rebirthing and transformational breath and Buteyko and all of that. And they all resonated with that term, even if they didn't know completely what it meant. And we did a ritual, and you were part of that, yeah? And so we had 2 more conferences of that breath immersion, From Science to Samadhi, in the following years. And I felt, Lauren, that that I had this experience through my breath and through the naming of the sense of the unified field, that there was a way for all of us to come together where breath was the president. Breath was the organizer, breath was the visionary, breath was the leader, and that each of schools, breath workers, researchers, people who use breath in the arts and service and education and all of that we could feel what it was that breath was calling to us, and we could learn to collaborate together. Knowing that one of the things about unity, and this is something Dan Siegel speaks about very deeply, is that integration and unity is only integration and unity if it's supporting all of the differentiations, and then it promotes the linkages between those differentiations. So somebody, a teacher who's using breath in the classroom, a breath worker who's doing, helping people transform their pain in their neck or whatever, and somebody who's doing research, we're all doing parts of sort of what it is that the breath is capable of bringing to humanity. And every time I talked with you about that, I felt like it really spoke to you, really inspired you, and your heart responded to it. And so it's been really beautiful to continue that conversation. And so, of course, I was thrilled when you did the Global Inspiration Conference and had this sense of bringing the schools together, or as many of the schools as we could, to have a conversation. So I think what I would love to do is for you and I to talk about and share with everybody what are some of the critical and valuable arenas and areas of the breathwork field that are wanting to develop, and what we know is developing, and what people could plug into, because everybody could plug into a different part of it, because breath will be your president.
It's true.
So why don't we start with let's just start with ethics, because that's, I think, something we can speak to quickly. And you shared with everybody, when I say that, I mean ethics we could speak about for days, but you are a member of the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance, and a big part of that as a breathworker is to commit to the set of ethics that was developed from 22 schools around the globe back in 2002. And so why did you feel that was an important thing, and what would you like to say about ethics?
So this is easy.
Yeah.
Because, it's the good housekeeping seal of approval. I'm doing a lot of television and radio and newspaper right now, and I'm getting a lot of people connecting with me, asking me, where do I go to get a breath worker? And so I said, well, if you go to the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance and you see who's listed there, you're going to get someone who cares about ethics, which I very much do. Teaching standards and hours and how long they've been doing it. And so it's been a beautiful landing place for me to send people. The International Breathwork Foundation also has listings too. And I always say, you can look to see where they studied, call their school, find out about their training. Will they recommend them? But, ethics is the foundation. You want to make sure people go into deep states during breath work, and they're very vulnerable, and you want someone in a safe space.
So here's a quick question that I think many people who are already in the field, breath workers and people that want to go to breath workers, are some of them thinking about, and you and I are probably thinking about this. It's like, we know that set of standards exists, the ethics rather, and how do we get more breath workers to learn about it? How do we elevate the field?
So at the 2019 JEEC, I had Jim come in and give a talk. Were you still there at that point?
Yes, I was part of the talk.
There you go. And, we had 250 people from all over the world, in Joshua Tree at that conference. And so a lot of people got jazzed listening to you two talk. And so that was a way to bring them in. And so I think, this year I'm going to be in Sweden, and you can give me materials, and I'm going to do the roundtable again, and I'll talk about the GPBA during the roundtable. So I just think it's, as the schools embrace it, the students will embrace it. And also, who doesn't want that good seal? Like if you walk into a building and it's gold certified or platinum certified, or I don't know what the highest is with LEED, probably platinum, right?
Yeah, platinum.
Okay. So you feel good living in that place, working in that place. I think it's the same.
Yeah. So, and that is incredible, and not everyone's going to get to one of these conferences. So I think we're probably putting out an invitation to all the schools that are listening out there that there is this beautiful set of ethics that has been agreed upon by 22 schools and developed over the years, and a lot of people are finding benefit from it. So breathworkalliance.com, you can find out about it and be a part of it, which you already mentioned about training standards, Lauren, and you know that we also compiled training standards for the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance of a minimum of 400-hour trainings and blah, blah, blah. And so do you feel the same thing is happening in your experience? I've certainly been speaking to my experience throughout the summit, but in your experience, do you feel like schools are feeling inspired to elevate their training standards?
So what I've been seeing is yes, and there is so much going on the planet now. People doing yoga, people doing meditation, qigong. That it's taking people less to get further.
That's interesting.
And so, where there, when I studied 15 years ago, 17 years ago, whatever it was, there was a lot of density there. And we had to go through so many years to kind of clear and purify and get through the layers. But now people are showing up like very shiny and just ready to go deeper. And it's a different standard or a different amount of teaching that's necessary. So I know the question you're asking. I personally believe that, a certain amount of time and practice and, one-on-ones and teaching groups and taking your time to really own this is important. And I am hearing people that we both know very well who've had breathwork schools for 20 years or more, shortening their programs because they see the progression.
And they're shortening their programs, but the programs are still meeting those standards that are on the GPBA.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think we found a more professional interface with the whole training, right?
Yes.
That includes the self-development and recognizes a way to progress a person step by step through the ability to teach others. Does that seem right to you?
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't want to go to a doctor that hasn't done a lot of work on themselves, right? I definitely don't want to go to a breath worker who hasn't done a lot of work on themselves, because your vibration, you're in training to who's sitting next to you as you're breathing. So for me, I think it's so important that your breath worker or whoever you're going to has gone through a program where they've self-evolved so that they can be with you as you go through your layers.
Thank you so much. Let's take this to, I want to take it to research and then to the integration into the medical system. But just quickly, research, I think both you and I can talk about some things that we know are happening. And, I'd love to hear what you think about the research, if you're excited about it, if you think we, as a breathwork field, should be focusing in certain areas, and just what you know is going on.
So, well, thanks to you, I learned about what's going on at Johns Hopkins. Have you already spoken about that?
Yeah.
Okay. And because of the, being involved with the IBF.
Which is the International Breathwork Foundation, just for everybody to know.
Yes. Sorry. Thank you. I have a friend in Bali who they're doing sound studies and showing how sound with breathwork affects the brain. There's people who are working on, isn't Shirley Tellis still working?
Oh, yeah.
Did you already talk about that?
Shirley is one of our faculty on this summit.
Great.
Yeah.
She's such a love.
Yeah.
So, I don't.
And isn't there a group at the International Breathwork Foundation that you actually started, which is a group of sort of science researchers and medical people?
I did. So when I joined the IBF, there wasn't anything like that. And so the IBF has psychiatrists and surgeons and orthodontists that are all breath workers and surgeons and scientists, and the list goes on. So when I was in South Africa like 3 years ago, I said, why don't we create a science group? And so when you speak with Gert, which I don't know if you have yet, he can go into more detail. I had to pull myself out of the group to be able to birth the book and the cheek. So I'm not as up to date these days about what they're doing. But I think if you go to the IBFnetwork.org, their website, you can learn and see what the science group is doing.
That's really great to know.
Yeah.
And I think there's just a bunch of people that we are really indebted to in the breathwork field who are doing extensive research. For instance, Dr. Brown and Dr. Gerbarg, who have taken the science of coherent breathing into trauma, places of trauma, schools, all kinds of places anyway, and gotten a lot of research that way. And as you mentioned, Shirley Tellis has about 175 publications about yoga and breath, arguably the most prolific yoga researcher and breath researcher in the world. And so I think as a field, we are feeling the whole thing about that the ancient wisdom of breath work is now being matched by science discovering what has been taught for all these thousands of years. And this is really helping open up the field of breath work to people that wouldn't otherwise do that, because they might equate things like consciousness and love with a kind of spiritual or airy-fairy, but now they can see it's actually just good health.
It's wonderful health.
Yeah.
So can I jump for a minute?
Yeah.
So because there is so much research and papers out there right now about breath, I was invited by MedStar Washington Hospital Center to teach 94 doctors, nurses, and clinicians 2 weeks ago. And it was powerful because they trusted a breath worker because they understood the power of it.
Yeah.
And so I used sound, movement, and breath with them. And by the end of it, they were like, we want more, we want more. They were hungry for it. It fed them. It fed their souls. It fed their minds. They left there with lifted spirit.
I think we're really finding that, aren't we? It's just more people are literally ready. Yeah. They're like ready right now. They don't actually have to even be coaxed. They're looking for something. I remember I did a few classes with med students at the University of Maryland, and they just felt like this is what our medical school training is missing, and so it's so exciting to see this happening.
I'm loving it.
Yeah.
Loving it.
So where are some of the other medical settings that you've, for instance, been able to speak about breathwork?
So I'm invited in May, I think it's May. Yes, May, to speak at Suburban Hospital. And it's part of their outreach. So patients and community are coming in. I mean, so there could be some doctors and nurses, but they want their community to understand breath work. I've spoken everywhere. I've spoken in nonprofits. I've spoken at, this doesn't have to do with science, but this is a great one. I spoke at the U.S. Postal Service headquarters in a cinder block room with people in swivel chairs, no windows, right? And put them through a breath session. And one woman who kept her high heels on the whole time in her swivel chair, she woke up from her session and she's like, someone was on my toes. Were you on my toes? And I said, no, I wasn't. She said, somebody was. And I said, you have an angel team. And it was so beautiful to see breath work in a place like that. Yeah. So not even just medical,
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember doing a presentation for the Maryland Psychological Association. They were all psychologists just drinking it up. I remember another one that I was really moved by, which was rehab therapists at a hospital here in Baltimore. And it was like 200 people. And again, just really soaking it up. This power of breath, it's so immediate and it's accessible for everyone. And whatever else is happening in the world, I think human beings, especially that are in the helping professions, service professions, are realizing that we need the depth of soul. We need the depth of soul to match the outer knowledge of the body and science and all of that. Otherwise, we're not actually taking healing to its full level.
No. Yeah. And they're burnt out. The healing community is burnt out. And I have nurses that come to my Monday night. I teach at the Mindfulness Center in Bethesda, Maryland, and every Monday night at 7 o'clock, I never know who's going to show up. I have like pediatric dentists, these like 30-year-olds that are burnt out.
Wow. Yeah. So I think that it would be just a beautiful thing to say when you work with somebody like that. Do they feel like in just one session they already feel better? No.
Oh, they walk in and their skin's a little grayish and they're just a little sluggish, and they leave and they're like bouncing around and they're hugging me and they're all chatting around, and it was like they had a little vacation because mind, body, and soul were fed during that session. And what I love is that they take this into their practice. They get their patients to breathe.
Yeah.
And it shifts so many things for them. It's not just a place of work anymore.
Yeah.
They're bringing in breath.
Yeah. So some of the other things that we talked about, we know in the terms of the unified field and sort of supporting all these differentiated places where breath could be infused into the culture, and then the sense that we all don't feel competitive, we feel collaborative because breath, again, is the president. Some of the other things we talked about was service, like how breath can be of service, and for instance, trauma, marginalized communities. That's a big one. And we have some people on the summit who are in some of the more traditionally marginalized communities who are talking about some of what could happen there.
Can I tell one little story about that?
Yeah.
So I went to go work in a women's shelter. And it was the first time that I was blessed with being able to go do that. And the first thing I noticed was their breath was so shallow. And so the only thing I worked on for that hour was to help them increase it just a little bit. And a lot of people don't equate the inhale with worthiness. But if you don't feel worthy, it's hard for you to take a breath.
Right. It's hard for you to take anything in of goodness.
Yeah.
So you felt, and what did they report? Just even getting that little bit more of breath.
The wattage of their smile got bigger. You know, they were more open and available. It was just beautiful. I'd love to do more of that.
Beautiful. And do you feel like when you talk to our fellow breath workers, and you know, at any spectrum of the breath field, whether they're yoga practitioners that use pranayama, or whether they're respiratory therapists, or whether they are people that have a particular technique of breathing like mindfulness or some kind of Buddhist thing, or whether they're doing some of the really deep soul level stuff like in holotropic and integrative and, you know, transformational, all of that, do you feel like you're hearing from your friends and colleagues in the breathwork field that they too are feeling more of a call to work with marginalized communities? Yeah.
I don't know anyone who isn't. If you're doing breathwork, you want everyone to have it. And in that community, a little bit goes a long way.
Yeah. Beautiful. And also we were talking about the arts. That was the other thing that we were. Now, I know a few people, I've known some really powerful pieces lately, like people that have developed, for instance, dancers or plays or poetry, rap around, for instance, people who have been, like, for instance, Eric Garner here in the United States, who died under the hands of a police, strangled, had asthma, whatever. And I know this woman that created an amazing dance called I Can't Breathe, you know, and it's all about breath, you know, and I've seen this kind of thing happening. And of course we have breath showing up in TV commercials.
Oh my God, the beer commercial using breath. I was like, is that sacrilege or is that good? That was wild.
Yeah. I just want to say that if there are any artists out there, you know, listening to this, if you're a choreographer, a poet, a dancer, a theater, you know, an actor, or a painter, an illustrator, that if you are feeling moved by the spirit of breath, I really wish that you would connect with us, because I think art is, it's like an expression of breath in, you know, creative form, and it is a thing that can inspire people in a pathway that is beyond words. And so in terms of building a unified field that is whole and reaches everyone, you would really be of great service.
And so music, you know, every Monday night I put these soundtracks together, and I would love the musicians to know where their music takes people, how healing music is connected to breathwork. And please feel free to email me or Jessica. You know, both of us could use it. any music that you want us to add in as people are breathing and going through these transformations. It's so powerful.
Beautiful. Maybe this is a good time to just say that some different websites that are coming out of this particular conversation that you might want to know about is the Breathwork Global Professional Breathwork Alliance, which we just mentioned is breathworkalliance.com. The International Breathwork Foundation is...
I don't want to get this wrong because they just changed it. So, because they are now a .com, they were International Breathwork, IBFnetwork.org was their old one.
And if you go there, you'll still be able to get connected.
I'm sure you'll find it.
It'll connect you
Or
right
if you
away.
just Google International Breathwork Foundation, you'll find them.
And then you have a website, experiencebreath.com.
Yeah, you can find me through breathlove.com, experiencebreathlove.com, or laurenshellacapritz.com. They all go to the same place.
Great. Okay. And so, Lauren.
Yes.
When you envision a world in which we understand more readily the power, the healing potential, the medicine, literally, that breath brings, the nutrients, if it was more readily accessible and also embodied, and we had the sense of the unified field and everybody's using the breath in the way that they use it, what do you see, what do you feel could happen for our world?
Oh my God. Literally. So, it would be you would walk into a medical or hospitals would be wellness centers. Mm-hmm. You would enter and there would be some sort of essential oil that opens your breath up and calms you as you walk in. So your first breath in there is healing. To going, if you're in the emergency room, there's breath workers in training there, breathing with people before they're seen, right? The healing begins before they even go in. Every school, I worked with a lot of school teachers, and I teach them simple things they can do so that as the kids come in, they take 10 conscious breaths or 10 conscious connected breaths even. And then they move their body a little bit. And it helps them clear the fight they had with their parent this morning, or the fight that their parents are having, or going through divorce, or whatever their stresses are. They could start the day in a clear way. Breath would just be everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for that beautiful vision, Lauren. And I think, a breath worker in every emergency room. That's my motto. And a breath worker in every school and every library and every, shopping center. I mean, human beings are starved for depth, I think. And when we don't have depth in an easily accessible way, we go and do things that are at the extreme that sometimes aren't sustainable or aren't integratable into our daily life.
Well, you could go to a bank now and get some trauma because they have televisions on with screens, with stories going on in the world, right? And so there's a constant need for a palate cleanse, to release and be present and release and be present. And so wouldn't it be great if all those screens just had people breathing and toning and
there
humming?
You go. There's a vision for our world. So, speaking of that, I really want to honor, again, all the people that are attending this summit from all over the world, over 100 countries. And Lauren, why don't we do a breath practice, a breath meditation with everybody for our world?
Yum. That sounds awesome. So I invite you all just to sit back in your chairs and let your whole body relax. And take a deep breath in. Let it open any tight pathways, and exhale. And just let it melt all the way down to your toes. Expanding and contracting, opening, softening. And if you're comfortable, letting a little sound out, even just like a like you just had the most delicious day. Let that hum just open you up right down your core. If you want, you can bring your intention into your heart and just put some gentle attention there. You could actually put a hand there if you'd like. And breathe some breaths into your heart. And with every inhale, just imagine breathing in a beautiful, sparkling white light, full of love. And with every exhale, let that white light just go into every cell of your body. Feeling the intention, I am light.
And allow yourself to feel how when we connect with our most essential self, our essential potential, our essential goodness, and when it's a biological experience of that, to actually feel the dynamism of that unfolding through our breath, so that it's not a shielding against the world, but it's a living into the world of that potential in each of us. Consider, as you are still taking these slow, deep breaths, letting go on each exhale, how much more open, perhaps, more strong, more available, more expansive, more loving, more capable, more joyful that you may feel right now. And let's consider that the more people that could connect with that they could have that experience. In fact, you might want to hold in your awareness right now as we take a few deep breaths together, the people that you have that are near and dear to you, your most beloved, intimate people, to just wish for them from your heart this same experience.
In a space where they could fully love themselves so deeply, and while be intoxicated by their self-love, that love of self, it just spills over to everyone.
And so with each breath, we can feel our own capacity to reach out to that everyone and imagine a world in which everyone, envision a world in which everyone is able through their breath to contact this place of more openness, more peace, more strength, more power, more love, more joy, more potential. So we invite you to recognize, to invite all of ourselves to recognize that right now everyone is breathing, and this potential dwells within each one of us. So let us breathe into the place where we're contacting it and feeling our capacity to make that space support that in other people.
If we ever lose that place that space of that love and support, we can take a moment to rest back and feel the earth breathing us and breathing with us, and the pulsation of the earth, and we can feel the trees breathing with us, and all sentient beings, and feeling that love and support, and we reconnect to who we truly are, what this breath truly is. And from that space, all will be ignited by this one breath.
One breath, the breath that we are breathing right now. Just one breath, and how powerful it is. One breath, the breath that you are breathing with whoever may happen to be with you in the room. And one breath, all human beings breathing. And one breath, the whole ecosystem. Receiving and letting go. Receiving and giving. Partaking of the feast of life and love, and giving out the gifts that each of us have. So here's to the unified field of breathwork, my friends. Thank you so much, Lauren.
Thank you so much. It's an honor.
Blessings, everyone.
Thank you for joining the Breathwork Summit, brought to you by the Shift Network. To learn more, visit breathworksummit.com. To learn more about our global programs to support you in waking up in all the areas of your life and taking inspired action, visit theshiftnetwork.com. Thank you again for joining us and for sharing this empowering path to embracing optimal well-being through conscious breathing.